Hello friends, welcome to the Nancy Drew PC games Iceberg. If you don't know what an iceberg is, it's an infographic referencing a certain topic or fandom, stylized to look like an iceberg. It's composed of different levels, with each level containing different pieces of information related to that topic or fandom. The idea is that the deeper you go, the less commonly known the information is. That's my understanding of it, at least. Quite often these type of videos will take an iceberg created by someone else and just explain all the references, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I chose to create my own because I'm a micromanager. That being said, I was heavily inspired by Tumblr user Click the Plane Ticket's Nancy Drew Iceberg, which I've linked in the description below, so please do check it out. I borrowed some items from their iceberg, which I've marked with a star, but I've also added quite a few things. Click the Plane Ticket's Iceberg was created in 2021, and I think quite a few things have changed in the Nancy Drew fandom since then, not least of which was the release of a new game. But I also wanted to make an iceberg more closely aligned with my personal experience of the fandom. A Nancy Drew PC games iceberg is something that can be so personal, you know? The content of icebergs can vary, but this one is a mixture of lore, behind-the-scenes facts, fan theories, memes, urban legends, general knowledge, and controversies. Also, I want to establish that this iceberg is about the Nancy Drew PC games made by Her Interactive only, not the books, not the screen adaptations, and not the non-Her Interactive video games. I am super excited about this video. I've been working on it for a long time, so I hope you all enjoy it too. If you do, might I humbly suggest that you like, comment, and subscribe. I also have channel memberships for $2.99 Canadian per month, which give you access to exclusive monthly videos if you would like to provide an additional level of support. Oh yes, and this video will contain some minor spoilers as well as some larger marked spoilers, so please be mindful of that if you haven't played through all the Nancy Drew games. Level 1. What is commonly known as the tip of the iceberg. Just the absolute basics. Nancy's mom is dead. Okay, so I guess the first thing you should know about Nancy Drew is that her mother is dead. And it will be the first thing you know about her because she loves to talk about it. If you're a suspect in a Nancy Drew game and you decide to innocently mention your deceased mother, Nancy will chime in and say, "Do you know my mother is also dead? My mother is dead too." From the Nancy Drew wiki page for Nancy's mom, in the Haunted Carousel, when Joy Trent mentions her mother died when she was 4, one of Nancy's responses is, "My mother died when I was really young too." In Secret of the Old Clock, Nancy mentions her mother has died when comforting Emily Crandall, who has also recently lost her mother. In Ghost of Thornton Hall, while talking to Harper Thornton, who lost her entire immediate family before she was an adult, and continues to mourn the tragic death of her sister, Nancy mentions her mother died as well. In Sea of Darkness, when Elizabeth Grimm's daughter mentions her mother died when she was a young girl, Nancy mentions hers did as well. In Mystery of the Seven Keys, when Elka Strynick mentions her mother's passing to Nancy, Nancy gives her condolences and offers support, given that she and Elka went through similar trauma. Really starting this iceberg out on a cheery note, aren't I? But yes, Nancy's mother died when she was little, a fact which is taken from the books, but in the games, the manner of her death diverges a bit from book canon in an odd way, which we'll get into later. 2 games per year. In 2001, 3 games deep into the series, Her Interactive began to release 2 games per year, starting with Treasure in the Royal Tower and The Final Scene, a pattern which would continue until the release of Sea of Darkness in 2015. Obviously, this is an extremely fast rate of production for video games, and the fact that the games were made to such a high standard just speaks to the talent and dedication of the developers, along with the unfortunate reality of video game crunch culture. The reason for this accelerated release schedule is that, according to game director Max Holacek, distributors were dropping video game prices, so that in order to continue to make a profit, Her Interactive needed to vastly speed up production and put out double their previous output. This release schedule continued until the release of Sea of Darkness in 2015, which was the only Nancy Drew game published that year. In the 9 years since the release of Sea of Darkness, we've only seen 2 new Nancy Drew games, Midnight in Salem in 2019 and Mystery of the Seven Keys earlier this year. This can be attributed to a variety of factors, mostly stemming from a lot of behind-the-scenes difficulties and changes at Her Interactive. But we'll talk more about that later. Second chances. Second chances are basically game over conditions in the games, which usually involve Nancy dying, such as from burning the kitchen down while making a birthday cake, or being impaled by a portcullis, or being swallowed by a giant carnivorous plant. Instead of being a hard game overs, however, players are given the option to have a second chance and retry from a point right before the catastrophic event occurred. Although second chance is a bit of a misnomer, as you can have as many chances as you need. These often zany and over-the-top game over sequences are a signature of the Nancy Drew games, distinguishing the series from other point-and-click puzzle games, and fans like me often trigger them just for the fun of it. If you want to know more about second chances, I have a video in which I talk about all the worst and best ones of the series, so check that out. Never seeing Nancy's face. The Nancy Drew games are in first person, with a few exceptions here and there, meaning that we never see Nancy's face. Even when opportunities are presented in which we might see her face in normal circumstances, such as in a photograph or in a mirror, it is obscured or hidden. Nancy is like a cryptid in that she cannot be clearly photographed. This practice was likely started to enable the player to project themselves into Nancy's role, but over time it's become almost a meme and is played up with a knowing wink to the audience. Nancy's fashion sense. Although we never see Nancy's face, there are other parts of her appearance which are more widely known, such as her reddish blonde or Titian hair, and her unique fashion sense. In the books, Nancy is known for having a sophisticated and trendy sense of style. This is not so much the case in the games, in which Nancy wears mom jeans and cheesy graphic tees, most famously or infamously this horse-printed one. We know about Nancy's style because in a lot of the earlier games she brings along her suitcase and we can peep inside it and judge. Other characters will also often comment unfavorably on Nancy's outfits, most recently Vladena in Mystery of the Seven Keys.
Though large frames would suit you, and go with your style, if that's what you call it.
The Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys are two mystery-solving brothers conceived by the same creator of the Nancy Drew book series, the book packaging firm the Stratemeyer Syndicate. They're basically Nancy Drew, but for boys. Although the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys book series ran in tandem for many years, the characters only began appearing in books together in 1981 in the Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys Super Sleuth books. More well known, however, is the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys Super Mystery series, which ran from 1988 to 1998 as a crossover between the Nancy Drew files and the Hardy Boys case files. Her Interactive clearly took inspiration from this series, as the Hardy Boys appeared as phone contacts as early as Danger on Deception Island, and Her even adapted one of the Super Mystery books, Mystery Train, into the game Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, which featured the first in-game appearance of our boys. Since then, Frank and Joe Hardy have reappeared in many of the Nancy Drew games, both in person and as phone contacts. Her Interactive actually released one Hardy Boys game for Nintendo DS, titled Treasure on the Tracks, although most of the development was outsourced. The plot follows the Hardy Boys traveling from Paris to St. Petersburg by rail in search of the Romanov family treasure, Sonny June. Sonny June is an iconic recurring character in the games. He's a chaotic presence who seemingly preempts Nancy's every move, first appearing in Secret of the Scarlet Hand as the intern who worked at Beach Hill Museum before Nancy. You can find his doodles and the effects of his chaos all over the museum, and he appears to have made a memorable impact on the other characters. His doodles point to several recurring fixations, such as aliens and Cocoa Kringle chocolate bars. Sonny also has a reputation for being a bit of a prankster, and his sense of humor coupled with his lack of impulse control often result in him getting fired from his various jobs and internships. You can find a copy of Sonny's resume in The Captive Curse, in which one of his special skills is listed as ability to caricaturize team members' personal quirks into drawings. That's great, Sonny. I'm sure that'll be a handy asset in your role as office aide. However, and even more interestingly, his resume predicts several game settings, such as the locations for Tomb of the Lost Queen, The Deadly Device, and even Midnight in Salem, which came out 8 years after The Captive Curse. Only one item on Sonny's resume has remained unaccounted for, his position on a cruise ship in Miami, leading fans to speculate that it could be the setting of another future game. After dogging Nancy as an off-screen presence for 12 years and 9 games, Sunny finally appeared as an in-game character in The Shattered Medallion. However, his role in the game disappointed a lot of fans. Firstly, he's very aloof. You don't really learn much more about Sunny as a person from talking to him in person than you do from his doodles, and there's no rapport between him and Nancy or mention of their coincidental past overlaps. Secondly, if you build up an off-screen character to the degree Her Interactive did and for the length of time they did, every single person is going to build up a different idea of what Sunny is like in their head, of who Sunny is. There's no way any in-game version of Sunny would satisfy every single person's expectation of what they thought he would be, so consequently, every single person was disappointed that Sunny didn't match up to their expectations. Introducing Sunny as an in-game character was set up to fail, basically. And it also doesn't help that the writing in Shattered Medallion makes you feel like you're constantly having a stroke. Sassy Detective Awards. The Sassy Detective Awards are certificates players are presented with after concluding a case in games 8 to 16. That's from the Haunted Carousel to White Wolf Bicycle Creek if you're bad with numbers, like me. Each of these games has a number of different certificates one can be awarded with, and which one you get is determined by your playstyle. Some common Sassy Detective Awards are conferred for solving puzzles quickly, using a lot of hints, or talking to suspects a lot, for example. Later games have something called Meta Awards, which are basically a list of achievements that are checked off at the end of the game depending on if you completed them or not. But I prefer the more personalized nature of the Sassy Detective Awards. It's something about the games that can vary every time you play them. Even if you've replayed each game 100,000 times, you still might not know which award you're going to get, and it's fun to have that moment of anticipation before you find out. Nancy's lack of tact, otherwise known as Nancy's habit of provoking other characters' trauma, whether this be repeatedly asking Pa from Trail of the Twister about his dead wife, even after Nancy knows she's dead, or repeatedly asking the family from Shadow at the Water's Edge about their dead mother/daughter, even after it clearly makes them uncomfortable. A lot of fans hate this aspect of Nancy's personality, but I love it because I'm a drama-loving bitch. Secret of the Old Clock Alternate Timeline. Almost all of the games in this series are set in modern day, the one exception being Secret of the Old Clock, which takes place in 1930, the year the very first Nancy Drew book of the same title was published. There's no canonical reason for this, but there is a behind-the-scenes one which we will discuss further into the iceberg. There is, however, a very interesting fan theory about this timeline discrepancy, which speculates that the events of Secret of the Old Clock all happen in a younger Nancy's imagination, considering this dollhouse you can see in a flashback to Nancy's childhood in The Silent Spy, which resembles Lilac Inn from Secret of the Old Clock. If you want to learn more about this theory and other fan theories I mentioned in this video, make sure to check out my various Nancy Drew theory videos in which I talk about them in more detail. Bloopers and outtakes. Starting with game number 18, The Phantom of Venice, Her Interactive began including a selection of short bloopers and scripted outtakes after the credits of each game. Most of these are kind of unfunny, and it doesn't help that they're supplemented by the addition of canned studio laughter.
Uh-oh, not good. Mayday, mayday. A little help here, please? Somebody? Oh shoot. Anybody got a shovel?
Some of the more iconic bloopers include severely depressed, grieving widower Pa from Trail of the Twister dancing on the Phantom of Venice nightclub stage for tips, the giant pigeon, and the portrait of the dead mother/daughter in Shadow at the Water's Edge doing a backflip and winking at the camera. Game 29, The Silent Spy, was the last game to feature these bloopers, and the next 3 games instead included bonus concept art after the end credits. Level 2. Games are based on books. So obviously the game series as a whole is based on the Nancy Drew books, a children's detective novel series which has been running in various iterations since 1930. But additionally, each individual game is inspired by a specific Nancy Drew book. For instance, Secrets Can Kill is based on a book of the same name, Mystery of the Seven Keys takes inspiration from Diamond Deceit, etc., etc. The amount each game borrows from its literary inspiration varies, but generally the earlier games feel quite similar to their respective books, and the newer games are almost unrecognizable from their supposed source material. I actually have a whole series of videos comparing the Nancy Drew books to the games they were based on, so feel free to check those out if you like. Francie. Francie is the ship name for the pairing of Nancy Drew and Frank Hardy. The romantic possibilities between the two of them were initiated in the canon of the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys super mysteries, which often had a sprinkling of flirtation and the suggestion of mutual pining, but never in such an overt way as to threaten the sanctity of Nancy's relationship with her long-term boyfriend, Ned Nickerson. And by long-term, I mean it's lasted like 92 years now. This suggestion of romance between Nancy and Frank was carried over into the games, such as in the infamous voice message from Frank in the outtakes of The Deadly Device.
Nancy, please be careful. I just want to tell you that I've always...
Message length exceeded. You have no more messages.
Nancy and Ned relationship drama. As I mentioned, Nancy has been dating her boyfriend, Ned Nickerson, for over 90 years. In the games as well, Nancy is shown to be dating Ned from the very first title in the series, and for 23 games, everything seemed fine, even if Ned is the boyfriend equivalent of the pet goldfish, until the captive curse. Fairly early in the game, Ned calls Nancy and the two of them get into a fight because they are supposed to have a date together, but Nancy's in Germany fist-fighting Frankenstein's monster or something. Basically, Ned is upset because he has no life. The Hardy Boys are forced to intervene and make Nancy and Ned reconcile, which, like,
Fun day.
imagine your number one simp that you emotionally cheat on your boyfriend with, feeling forced to convince you and said boyfriend that you belong together and are actually kinda soulmates. Yikes. Things gradually escalated from there. In Sea of Darkness, Nancy forgets her and Ned's anniversary because she's having an intellectually stimulating and emotionally fulfilling time solving a missing persons case in Iceland. And Ned's waiting at Olive Garden in his Old Navy polo with a bag of Hershey's Kisses. In Midnight in Salem, Nancy and Ned are portrayed as being mutually jealous of each other hanging out with people of the opposite gender. And this is related to Francie because Ned has obviously picked up on the vibes between Frank and Nancy and is jealous of Frank specifically. However, in Mystery of the Seven Keys, all their romantic troubles appear to be forgiven and forgotten, and Nancy's like, "Ooh, I love you so much, Ned. I have been and always will be there for you. You
Fun day.
liar, you literally forgot your anniversary and flew to freaking Iceland." Anyway, this romantic tension between Nancy and Ned is another element borrowed from the books, as it's a prevalent theme in the Nancy Drew Files series, which quite a few games are based off of. You will either hate this subplot or love it, if you're a drama-loving bitch like me. Nancy's mom is a spy. So I mentioned in level 1 of the Iceberg that Nancy's mom's death diverges from book canon in a kind of strange way. That's because in the games, Nancy's mom is a spy, and she died while doing spy things in Scotland. We find this out in game 29, the silent spy. Well, yeah, she's dead. Not really surprising that she's silent. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of this choice. I think it kind of delegitimizes Nancy's skills by creating this mythology around her, as if she's not responsible for her own actions and instead owes them all to her mother or fate, like she's some kind of mystery-solving Nepo baby. In my opinion, what's appealing about Nancy Drew is that she's just the girl next door, a normal teen with no preternatural origins. She's literally just a girl. Detective. Midnight in Salem controversy. When Midnight in Salem released in 2019, 4 years after the previous game, Sea of Darkness, it was met with a lot of criticism. Fans had to wait a longer amount of time between games than they were used to, so there was a greater degree of anticipation surrounding Mid's release, which, as we learned from the whole Sunny June thing, doesn't bode well. Her Interactive also switched graphics engines from their in-house engine to Unity for mid, and it was clear that they weren't as experienced with Unity as they were with their own engine, considering that the graphics looked outdated and compared very unfavorably with Sea of Darkness, which, yes, had released 4 years previously, and there were a slew of other things which just weren't up to the level of quality fans expected from Nancy Drew games. The controls were unintuitive and difficult to use, the story and puzzle pacing was poor, the lip sync for the characters was off, etc., etc. You name it, fans had an issue with it in mid. In fact, the release and reception to mid were so bad that many fans feared Her Interactive would never make another Nancy Drew game, which obviously wasn't true, but it was a fear. It was a big fear at a certain time. But we'll dive a bit deeper into what caused this whole debacle a bit further down into the iceberg. Dossier games. In 2008, Her Interactive released Lights, Camera, Curses, the first game in a spin-off series called the Nancy Drew Dossiers. The Dossier titles are primarily hidden object games, or HOGs, departing from the more involved gameplay of the main Nancy Drew games and were marketed as fast fun for busy detectives, corroborating their relative simplicity. Ultimately, Her Interactive only published 2 Dossier games, Lights, Camera, Curses, and Resorting to Danger, before cancelling the series, again apparently due to the increased costs associated with making games. But that's not the last we'll see of the Dossier games in this iceberg. Easter eggs. To quote Wikipedia, an Easter egg is a message, image, or feature hidden in software, a video game, a film, or another, usually electronic, medium. The Nancy Drew games have a lot of these, such as Lumpy the Fish, and Nancy phoning herself in the Haunted Carousel. However, a lot of the Easter eggs in the games are very literal Easter eggs. The very first of these appeared in Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, and they soon became a staple in the series, with multiple Easter eggs appearing in each game, and a different set of obscure requirements to collect each one. Mystico. Mystico, full name Mystico the Magnificent, is a strange individual Nancy can talk to on the phone in White Wolf of Icicle Creek, after you figure out his phone number from a jingle Nancy sings while in the toilet.
Call 1555 Mystico and prepare to be amazed.
These games are fucking weird, okay? Anyway, Mystico is significant because he's seemingly clairvoyant. While talking to him, he refers to a dark figure named Bruno in Nancy's future, alluding to the character Bruno Boulet, who has a significant role in the next game in the series, Legend of the Crystal Skull. When prompted, Mystico will also list off a variety of Nancy's friends, past suspects, and culprits. But he is also responsible for what is, in my opinion, the most unhinged Easter egg in the whole series. After asking Mystico for something special and jumping through a few other hoops, the previously locked Chinook room at the lodge will be open. Inside is a strange Easter egg-themed room. Look, Mystico, you don't have to involve me in your personal freak business, okay? What goes on behind closed doors can stay there, you know? This will also trigger Nancy having a freaky nightmare, which includes one of the few jump scares in the Nancy Drew games.
Oh man, talk about your freaky dreams. My subconscious needs to get a life.
Viscerally terrifying for absolutely no reason. I love it. Dagny is gay. Dagny Silva is a character in Sea of Darkness and is so far the only confirmed LGBTQIA+ character in the games. The sole reference to her sexuality is a text on her phone in which she mentions her ex-life partner, Alicia. According to an anonymous former Her Interactive employee on Reddit, the gay character in C was secretly placed in there and not openly discussed out of a small circle until it was too late for them to tell us to get rid of it. Although Dagny is the only confirmed gay character, there are a lot of other characters in the series who fans commonly headcanon as falling within the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, like Rose Green and Abby Sedaris, two seemingly unattached women who live in the haunted mansion they purchased together and who appear to only have one bedroom between them. Also Jenna Devlin and Katie Firestone, who are definitely ex-girlfriends. And Nancy and Deirdre Shannon, the perfect enemies to lovers, slow burn romance, and no, I will never stop pushing my Nancy Deirdre agenda. And a slew of deceased bachelors like Bruno Boulet, who never married, and we all know what that means. Her Interactive merch. Her Interactive has a Teespring store where they sell merch designs inspired by the Nancy Drew games. Infamous merch items include the Ned on a Sled sticker, the 8 different neck gaiter designs, the Big Island Mike bucket hat, and the Hardy Boys sliders. Imagine me arriving at the function in my Big Island Mike bucket hat and Hardy Boys sliders. This item is on the list because a lot of fans seem to really hate Her Interactive's merch designs, but I personally don't agree. I think there's a lot of appealing stuff on there. My personal gripe is their awful pricing. There is no consistency, and some items are hideously overpriced. Let's look at the bucket hats as an example. First, all of them are different prices for some reason. And let's take a closer look at those prices. $58.42? I'm sorry, in no world am I paying almost $60 for a bucket hat. And this is why I don't own the Big Island Mike bucket hat. Yes, I love it. I think it's super catchy, but I just can't justify the price to myself. And unfortunately, the promo code DADDY2022 is no longer valid. I'll just have to raw dog serving cat without a Big Island Mike bucket hat, I guess. The blanket they sell is great though. It's big and cozy and my cat freaking loves it. Fan contests. Her Interactive love to run a little contest. A lot of these contests return yearly, such as the cookie contest, the Valentine's contest, the cosplay contest, and the pumpkin carving contest. But in the past, they've also had unique contests, in which the winners got to be featured in the next game. This is why you can see a photo of Nancy Drew YouTuber Arglefumf in Secrets Can Kill Remastered, and why that one protester in Midnight in Salem has awful recording quality, to name 2 examples. They both won contests.
Why are there protesters in a small town like this?
So if you ever encounter a picture of a random child while playing a Nancy Drew game, yeah, they were probably a contest winner. Level 3. Her Interactive layoffs and changes. This is why Her Interactive's release schedule changed, and why Midnight in Salem was a bit of a disaster. In March of 2015, Her Interactive laid off over half their employees due to changing market conditions in the game industry and shifting priorities. This meant a lot of changes. There was the aforementioned game engine switch, the original voice of Nancy, Lonnie Minella, was replaced with a new voice actor, and a large portion of the development of Her Interactive's games started to be outsourced to other companies rather than created in-house, and Mid was developed within this shaky transition time. Allegedly, the Nancy Drew games have never been exactly profitable, and as those darn market conditions insist on continuously changing, it kind of feels like a big shift such as this was sadly inevitable. We've been seeing signs of it even throughout this Iceberg, with the rapid-fire release schedule and the cancellation of the Dossier series. Honestly, I kind of feel lucky we're still getting Nancy Drew games. But let's take a moment to think about the people who suffered the most in this situation. All the Her Interactive employees who first had to adhere to a breakneck release schedule and later were abruptly fired. I really feel for them, and I fervently hope that they're all very happy and successful now. Ransom of the Seven Chips blackface controversy. Spoilers for Ransom of the Seven Chips. Ransom of the Seven Chips is the 20th Nancy Drew game. It was originally released in July 2009 and discontinued in July 2020 over concerns about racially insensitive material. To provide some context, this game sees the return of Dwayne Powers, the culprit from Stay Tuned for Danger, who originally disguises himself as a man named Johnny Roll, who has a Jamaican accent and dreadlocks. Her Interactive explained their reasoning for discontinuing Ran in response to an email from a fan. Thank you for your interest in Nancy Drew Ransom of the Seven Chips. We have discontinued this game as there is a character who disguises himself as different ethnicities. As a company, we are addressing the critically important issues of racism, inclusion, and diversity that Black Lives Matter has helped us all to place a spotlight on. Meaningful changes need to happen within companies, and we will continue to be part of these changes. We are committed to being sensitive and respectful to people of color, and therefore have discontinued the availability of this game. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please consider another game from our collection. But despite some protestations, RAN remains discontinued, which naturally means there are people on eBay trying to sell physical copies of the game for $760. Please do not buy Ransom of the Seven Ships for $760. It is not a good game. Mystery of the Seven Keys marketing. After Her Interactive announced they were working on the 34th Nancy Drew game, Mystery of the Seven Keys, they began an elaborate marketing campaign to build hype. This campaign had fans decoding puzzles to find web pages and figure out passwords, with a focus on collaboration among fans. The solutions to these puzzles would reveal hints to information about the new game, which Her Interactive would subsequently release on their social media pages, such as new characters and the game's title. However, this campaign went on for about a year, leaving a lot of fans burnt out and impatient for the game's release date, especially as the release of meaningful information slowed to a trickle, with the peak or trough, depending on your perspective, of this being a big announcement revealing Key's desktop icon. Still, for a few beautiful months, the Clue crew were united by a sense of purpose and positive excitement. Console ports. Over the years, various Nancy Drew games have been ported or adapted for other consoles with limited success. And I kind of hesitate to use the term console as a blanket term here because some of these really stretch the definition of console. The first game to be ported was Message in a Haunted Mansion for the Game Boy Advance, which was released about a year after the PC game. This also has the honor of being my very first Nancy Drew game. As you might expect, a lot of content was cut from this port, but hey, it was still enough to get me interested in the series. A gateway drug, you might say. Then in 2007, Her Interactive released Curse of Blackmore Manor for DVD. Yeah, bit of a weird one, and one of the reasons why I hesitated to say consoles. There's a small trend of DVD games around this time, and quite a few interactive experiences in this vein were included with movies on DVD as bonus features. Blackmore Manor for DVD is actually the only Nancy Drew game with a 2-player mode, but it doesn't really work that well. If you want to learn more about the Curse of Blackmore Manor DVD game, my friend and fellow YouTuber Mary Lovemew has a great video about it, which I will link above. Probably the most infamous Nancy Drew console port is White Wolf of Icicle Creek for the Nintendo Wii. If you thought Fox and Geese was hard, imagine it with the Wii's motion controls. Absolutely diabolical. Interestingly, some aspects of the game were changed for the Wii version. For example, the cooking minigame is completely different, and there's the addition of collectible photo pieces, which, when you collect them all, can be pieced together into an image of Julius McQuaid and Isis. In 2011, Her Interactive dipped their toes into the mobile game market with Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch. This was also a game I loved back in the day. I played the heck out of it on my first generation iPod Touch. It's extremely different from the PC version of Secret of Shadow Ranch in that it's more of an interactive novel, interspersed with simple mini-games. I remember specifically there was one that was like a hidden object game where you had to find a bunch of arrowheads. Good times. The last Nancy Drew game to be ported to a different console as of 2024 was Ghost of Thornton Hall Mobile in 2014. This was more of a direct port than Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch, being fundamentally the same as the PC version. Although bizarrely the mobile version had a much higher FPS, frames per second, rate than the PC version. For almost all of these ports, sequels were planned that were basically just more of the games ported to the same consoles, but none of them ever came to fruition. Game hacks. In certain Nancy Drew games, there are steps you can take to fudge difficult and/or time-consuming puzzles. For example, in Danger by Design, you can skip the notorious photo development puzzle by flushing Dieter's toilet 10 times, and Secret of Shadow Ranch's awful magnet puzzle can be made marginally easier if you leave and approach the puzzle about 6 times, which removes the wooden blocks hiding parts of the maze. Presumably, these hacks exist to either make life easier for the developers when they're playtesting, such as in the photo puzzles case, or to take pity on all the poor 9-year-olds out there absolutely in the trenches struggling with Shaw's magnet puzzle. Do yourself a favor and look up the clamming hack next time you play Danger on Deception Island if you don't want want freaking digital clams to make you lose the will to live? You're welcome. Bonus editions. Per Interactive published bonus editions, also referred to as special editions, for games 22 to 32, so from Trail of the Twister to Sea of Darkness, the only exception being their remastered version of Secrets Can Kill. The concept of bonus or special editions is pretty self-explanatory. Buyers can pay more money for a version of the game with bonus or special content. In the Nancy Drew games, this bonus and special content included additional meta awards, mini-games you could play on Nancy's phone, and what is, in my opinion, the most bonus and special content, collectible phone charms. Phone charms were actually introduced in Shadow at the Water's Edge, even in the unspecial version of the game, and could be found and then displayed on Nancy's phone, but they became a staple of the bonus and special editions from the Captive Curse onwards, although again with an exception, which is Alibi and Ashes. I'm sorry, this might be too much information for an Iceberg video, but I just want to give you all the context and preempt some of the actually type of comments. Anunnaki. Spoilers for the Shattered Medallion. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Anunnaki are a class of gods within the ancient Mesopotamian pantheon. According to Nancy Drew, the Anunnaki are a race of intergalactic travelers who landed in ancient Egypt. That's a direct quote from the Nancy Drew wiki. Yeah, they're freaking aliens. And yes, the Anunnaki also allegedly helped build the pyramids, and were responsible for most, if not all, of the major advancements that ancient civilizations were known to possess, to again quote the Nancy Drew wiki, which we all know is one of the worst conspiracy theories out there, and one of the most problematic, as it doesn't ascribe any of the real humans who lived in that era any intelligence or skills. Supposedly, Sonny June and his family are descendants of the Anunnaki, and Sonny's actions in the Shattered Medallion are motivated by a desire to find an ancient beacon marking a step in humanity's evolution for the testers of humankind to witness, to once again quote the Nancy Drew wiki. And yes, I'm quoting from the wiki so much in this section because I don't understand what is going on in this stupid subplot at all. I have great admiration for the wiki writers who were able to put this ludicrous conspiracy theory into any semblance of order. It's also worth noting that the Nancy Drew games have always existed in this sort of heightened and exaggerated version of the world, while still being grounded in reality. No, banshees do not exist, but flying jetpack grandmas do. Ghosts aren't real, but Mr. Skinbag is, etc. So to suggest that Sonny June loves to draw UFOs and little green men because he's an actual real-life alien is bizarre, to say the least. Ship of Shadows. To return to the Nancy Drew dossiers, Ship of Shadows was supposed to be the third game in the series, but was never released after the series was cancelled, despite getting cover art and even a teaser trailer at the end of Resorting for Danger. The plot was going to be about Nancy investigating a haunted cruise ship, which is an absolutely incredible plot. Like, that's not a want, that's a need. Although I would still prefer it to be explored through a mainline Nancy Drew game, the dossier titles just don't scratch the same itch for me. Ghost of Thornton Hall, in theory. This is possibly the most popular Nancy Drew fan theory. Hopefully you can understand why I can't say its full name for YouTube reasons. In Ghost of Thornton Hall, Wade tells Nancy that Clara's mother refused to tell her who her father was, not even on her deathbed.
Why not?
Don't know. When Clara was about 10, Rosalie got real sick. Every day Clara would ask about her daddy. I think she was afraid of being left to fend for herself, but Rosalie wouldn't say.
Fans posited that this might be because of a word that begins with I and rhymes with Wild West. And there is some information out there which would appear to back this theory up. You can find a note that suggests that Clara's maternal grandfather, Jackson, had something to hide. But what really added fuel to the fire of this theory was the response a Her Interactive employee made to a interview question about Clara's father. Ghost of Thornton Hall is a very dark story, but we are a company that designs for ages 10 and up. Our goal in this particular game was to design a game that would engage the younger players but really scare the older players. However, this theory has since been debunked by Her Interactive, who stated that this wasn't their intention when creating the game. Nancy Drew Rap. The Nancy Drew Rap is a Nancy Drew themed rap song from the original Secrets Can Kill. It's actually not featured in the game itself. You can only find it if you dig through the game's sound files, but it's a true hidden treasure.
Like a bullet from a gun, she arrived on the scene, a young detective who doesn't know the meaning of fear.
According to original Nancy Drew composer Kevin Manthei, it was his idea to compose a rap song for the game, and his friend wrote and performed the lyrics. Level 4. Angel Investor. If you're not familiar with the term, a so-called angel investor is an individual who provides monetary support to businesses, usually startups. Her Interactive is a business which benefited from an angel investor, which is how they were able to continue consistently making games when they allegedly weren't turning a net profit. Not much is known about this angel investor other than that he apparently chose Her Interactive to support because he was passionate about creating educational and logic-based games for girls. We don't know who he is, although a Kotaku article claims that he helped found some immensely profitable biotech companies. We also don't know how long he provided support for Her Interactive, but we can make a few inferences. This angel investor is mentioned in a blog post by Sherry Grainer Ray, who left Her Interactive after working on Secrets Can Kill and their previous game, The Vampire Diaries, so we can assume that he was providing capital from the inception of the Nancy Drew series. Additionally, we can pretty much take it as a fact that this angel investor is no longer providing money to Her Interactive for whatever reason, whether he passed away or decided to help out a different business or something else. And perhaps that's why all the layoffs happened in 2015, but of course we can't know that for sure. Lani Minella Controversies. Lani Minella was the longtime voice actor for Nancy before she was replaced by Brittany Cox for Midnight in Salem. Of course, we all love Lani's voice, it's like bathing in warm cookie dough, but her legacy has been dogged by controversy since leaving the series. Her Interactive have never given an official reason as to why Lani was fired from her role as Nancy, and Lani's own statements have been quite vague. This has led to a lot of speculation as to why she was let go. One of the prevailing theories is that Lani leaked confidential information about the games to fans, although there has been no reliable source for this information that I could find apart from a few unverified Tumblr posts. In an interview with Refinery 29, Lani said, "The separation was not due to me sounding too old, and it wasn't because I asked for more money," dismissing two other popular theories as to why she departed from the series. She speculates that the separation was due to Her Interactive wanting to go in a different direction to attract new, younger fans. However, that's not the only controversy Lani's been a part of. In 2015 and 2016, she posted links on her personal Tumblr and Twitter accounts to YouTube conspiracy videos about chemtrails, urging her followers to please watch and share. However, she hasn't posted anything more about this conspiracy theory since 2016. The Tumblr post about Lani reading a fan the entire script of Sea of Darkness stinks of a classic Tumblr fake story, especially as no other sources seem to authentically validate it. And don't all our grandparents get caught up in conspiracy theories now and again? I feel like older people are more susceptible to internet nonsense than people who were raised on the internet and have a healthy skepticism about anything they see online. So I'm going to give Lani the benefit of the doubt in this case. American Laser Games. American Laser Games was the original parent company of Her Interactive. They were founded in the 1980s and made light gun games like Mad Dog McCree. American Laser Games eventually went bankrupt after the dwindling popularity of the arcade industry and were bought out by Her Interactive, who then later sold on the license themselves. Her Interactive Message Boards. The Her Interactive Message Boards are an online forum where fans can ask for help with the games, talk about their opinions, and just generally connect with the community. Though the message boards have basically been usurped by the subreddit now, they were the place to talk about about the Nancy Drew games online for years. You can still find people on the subreddit today sharing stories about an infamously strict moderator who went by the handle Cats and Books, and Her Interactive recently released a merch design paying tribute to a common signature on the message boards. I wasn't personally on the message boards myself, so if you have any good stories about Cats and Books, or your experience being on the message boards as a whole, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Codes and Clues. Codes and Clues is the other Nancy Drew spin-off series. Well, it was meant to be a series. It released in 2016 and there's been no word on a sequel. It was part of a new division of Her Interactive called HI Kids, which has also not put out any new games or products since 2016. Codes and Clues is an app game targeted at children aged 5 to 8, which aims to teach them the basics of computer programming. This game is a point of resentment for lots of Nancy Drew fans who, at the time of release, were eagerly awaiting Midnight in Salem, and were frustrated that Her Interactive appeared to be putting its resources towards Codes and Clues instead. And if you ever get tired of the Nancy Drew rap, this game also has a theme song you can sing along to.
It begins with just a clue, and one adventurous girl with a mind for mystery.
Control-Shift-Tab. Control-Shift-Tab is the command prompt which will bring up the developer menu in the Nancy Drew games. With this menu, you can do things like skip puzzles, excuse me, or even set your game as a special edition so you can collect all the phone charms. Fandom holidays. During the drought between Sea of Darkness and Midnight in Salem, Her Interactive posted a lot of what I would call fluff posts on their social media pages. This included celebrations of holidays no one has ever heard of, such as Bald is Beautiful Day, which they have also called Be Bald and Be Free Day in the past for some reason, which kind of sounds like a command, maybe why they renamed it. Bald is Beautiful Day is September 13th, by the way, in case you want to celebrate next year by going bald, I guess. Be bald and be free. But the Clue Crew has also created their own holidays based on the game, such as August 17th, which is Deirdre Ran a Red Light Day, and September 25th, Expired Mayo Day. Mark your 2025 calendars now. Miss Clue. Miss Clue is another series of mystery point-and-click games, which is basically a watered-down version of the Nancy Drew games. Instead of starring Nancy Drew, they loosely follow the daughter of Pride and Prejudice characters Mr. Darcy and Lizzie Bennet. I say loosely because, to the best of my knowledge, only one game actually follows her and the others seem to feature her descendants or ancestors instead, and more often than not the whole game passes by without a mention of Jane Austen or any of her characters. It's a sloppy conceit and feels more like an afterthought than a grounding element of the series. It's very clear Miss Clue is heavily inspired by the Nancy Drew games, from the silhouette in their logo, to their menu design, to their another chance mechanic. One ironic fun fact is that Miss Clue was able to create and publish a competitor to Midnight in Salem called Trials of Salem, which features Lonnie Minella, the original voice of Nancy, in between the time it took Her Interactive to announce Midnight in Salem and actually release it. Oh yeah, and the most recent Miss Clue game is called Christmas at Donner Pass and is about the Donner Party.
My fear is compounded from my experience.
No!
Yes, when I was very young, my family was part of the Donner
No,
Party.
he was part of the Donner Party! We're going to experience the Donner Party to face his fears? I can't believe they're doing this! I cannot believe they're like, let's recreate the experience of the Donner Party in this video game. Look at him in his goggles! I kind of want to experience dying in this. No! They did not! They did not!
Look at this.
No, they did not!
Wait a second.
No, what is...
Oh god, they're eating each other. It's all starting over again.
I cannot believe this game! I cannot believe they're making entertainment out of the Donner Party!
That looks like an old abandoned cabin.
Oh. Okay, I got eaten by one of the members of the Donner Party. I got cannibalized. This is unreal. I'm having an out-of-body experience.
We need to find some way to distract
the jerky.
Even that flesh-seeking monster at the door.
A flesh-seeking monster?
Semen, which I suppose is the same thing.
Eat my jerky! Eat my jerky! I actually can't believe that they're like, oh, this is a flesh-seeking monster. When in reality, it was just like a human put under the worst conditions imaginable and forced to do something they probably would never, ever want to do. And they're like, oh, flesh-eating monster! Why can't I feed it my jerky? Absolutely insane subject for a light-hearted children's game. The last update on the Miss Clue website is from December 2023, and with no word on any future game plans, it's possible that Christmas at Donner Pass will pass into history as the final Miss Clue game. Locked Drawer and Stay Tuned for Danger. In Stay Tuned for Danger, while exploring Maddie Jensen's apartment, you can discover a locked drawer in her desk. However, you won't find a key for this drawer because the developers accidentally forgot to include it. Former Her Interactive employee Little Jackalope, who now goes by the username Story Retold Online, was able to open the drawer and discover the contents. Fan letters to Rick Arlen, presumably written by Maddie herself. Jane's parents were both in Rome. In Curse of Blackmore Manor, Jane Penvillin is upset and acting out because her parents are divorced and she has a new stepmother. However, there's some optional dialogue you can unlock which insinuates that Jane's parents might not be as disconnected as she thinks they are. First, you can phone Jane's father, Hugh, who is on a business trip in Rome. Then take a look at the postcard Jane sticks up on her mirror. It's a postcard from Rome, sent by Jane's birth mother. You can actually call Hugh and confront him about this, but he firmly denies knowing that Jane's mother is also in Rome. That's unfortunately as far as you can pursue the story in the game, but there's enough evidence there to suggest that it might not be all a coincidence. There are quite a few hidden subplots like this in the games, another of which we'll discuss in the next level of the Iceberg. Level 5. The Cody Capers. The Cody Capers Cody Pops the Case is another game created by Her Interactive, and when it was published in 2007, was the first non-Nancy Drew game they'd made since the release of Secrets Can Kill in 1998. I'm going to hell because the whole time we're talking about this game, I can't stop thinking the Cody Capers Cody Pops the Cherry. The gameplay looks like a lot of app games, with players having to match and pop bubbles, framed by a story about a dog detective solving his first case. According to Nancy Drew walkthroughs, this game was never available as a physical game. It was only released digitally on Her Interactive's old store. Unfortunately, when it was released back then, it required an installation code provided by the online store. Without the code, the game couldn't be installed. Few people still have the installer available, and even fewer have the installation code. So the Cody Capers has essentially become lost media now, which, despite the simplicity of its gameplay, still feels tragic. Oaxaca Gate. Unfortunately, we now have to talk about Oaxaca Gate, the fan theory concerning the filling of Taylor Sinclair's Oaxacan cookies. This is a joke theory, at least I hope it is, which I believe originated on Tumblr. It basically suggests that the cookies in Taylor Sinclair's office in Secret of the Scarlet Hand are filled with a certain type of white human fluid. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You can put the pieces together yourself if you really want to. Hope you're paying rent on that gutter your mind lives in, you dirty gutter rats. Henrik faked his amnesia theory. This is a theory which suggests that Henrik van der Heun faked his amnesia and is the real mastermind behind the black market smuggling ring in Secret of the Scarlet Hand. I talked about it in more depth in my most recent Nancy Drew Theories video, so check that out if you'd like to learn more. Ring reference in Shadow at the Water's Edge. There are a lot of references to movies in the Nancy Drew games. For example, the conversation between characters at the camp in Secret of the Old Clock is a nod to Friday the 13th, and Lulu the parrot in Curse of Blackmore Manor says, you're going to need a bigger boat, which is a quote from Jaws. But some of these movie references are a bit more subtle. While it's clear that the ghost in Shadow at the Water's Edge is inspired by the character Sadako from the movie Ring, there's a more hidden reference to the movie in the game. Nancy is ostensibly in Japan to tutor kids in English, and there's an optional task to grade homework. One of the students is named Sakura, and her bio reads, "Interests. Enjoys playing by the seaside cliffs. Very interested in wells." In both the American and Japanese versions of Ring, the main ghost is killed and left inside a well, and in the American version, the character Samura's mother died by jumping off a seaside cliff. Minette's real name. Minette's real name is Tammy Burns, although this isn't mentioned explicitly in Danger by Design. This fact is, however, alluded to in Phantom of Venice, where you can see the name Tammy Burns signed on a diploma in Fango's office. Jane's guinea pig theory. Spoilers for Curse of Blackmore Manor. This theory is heavily implied in Curse of Blackmore Manor. At the end of the game, it's revealed that Jane has been manipulating her new stepmother Linda into believing Linda is a werewolf. One of the methods she uses is putting her balding uncle's hair growth medicine in Linda's moisturizer, which causes her hand to become all furry. Additionally, in the game, you learn that Jane's guinea pig recently died. This theory connects those two facts and suggests that Jane tested the hair growth medicine on her guinea pig, which caused it to pass away. Character changes in Midnight in Salem. When Midnight in Salem was in production, character art and info was revealed on her interactive social media pages, some of which differed from the final product. For example, Olivia Ravencroft's name was originally Jenna Ravencraft, and Lauren Holt was Lauren Corey, leading fans to speculate that she was related to Ingrid Corey from The Haunted Carousel. These changes are indicative of the fact that Mid's original story was written by Katie Chironis, writer of Sea of Darkness. Clearly, when Katie was let go from the company, the new writers changed some aspects of her original plot. I'm honestly really sad we didn't get Katie's version of Midnight in Salem. The story in Sea of Darkness was so strong. Albino Gate. Some of the character art released in the build-up to Midnight in Salem was of May Perry, or as she was referred to at the time, May Paris. The Facebook caption that accompanied this post mentioned that May has spent her life pulled between two extremes due to her physical appearance, a remark which confused fans who asked what it meant in the comments. Her Interactive responded to all these comments with the same copy-pasted response to the effect of, "Hi Karen, she has albinism. Thus a great meme was born. JJ Ling planted the paint bomb." Spoilers for Danger by Design. Towards the end of Danger by Design, Nancy discovers a paint bomb attached to Minette's door, which she has to hurry to disarm before it explodes into a second chance. Although it's easy to assume the paint bomb was planted by members of the German secret police to threaten Minette, it's actually canon that JJ Ling planted this paint bomb. This can apparently be confirmed through dialogue, although I don't know what triggers it, and I don't know anyone who's discovered this in a natural playthrough and not by looking through the game files. The only piece of evidence towards this that the average player can find are some books on electrical engineering in JJ's kitchen. Gorf. This is a weird one. Gorf is a title of a page on the Nancy Drew wiki. It reads, "Gorf is the psychic frog who always seems to mysteriously follow Nancy around the world. Basic information. Location, everywhere. Titles, Gorf the Psychic Frog." If you were not previously familiar with Gorf, you're probably feeling pretty confused right now. So, despite having his own page on the Nancy Drew wiki, Gorf is not actually a real part of the Nancy Drew games, but an elaborate work of fanon. If you would like to learn more about Gorf, he has extensive lore, all of which is captured on his wiki page. Level 6. If you know all these, you're in too deep, okay? Secret of the Old Clock was going to be the last game. Apparently, Secret of the Old Clock was slated to be the final Nancy Drew game, which explains its unique setting and the amount of Easter eggs within it. Nancy Drew walkthroughs speculates that most likely her was in the process of renewing the license for the Nancy Drew character from Simon & Schuster, and it may have been unknown whether or not they would get the license again. Scary Balloon in Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake. This entry is in reference to an urban legend from the Her Interactive message boards. On March 15th, 2007 at 10:58 a.m., user Pallery Matry posted a thread to the Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake Hints and Tips forum titled simply, Balloon. What do you do with the purple balloon? Spoilers welcome. Users responded with confusion, and Pallery Matry gave more information. No, it's a balloon, and it's purple, and it's on the dock thing. Last time I looked at it, it had a scary face on it. I got so scared I had to stop playing, and I couldn't fall asleep because I was so scared. When I walk towards it, it disappears, and that's why it is so scary. The face has 3 eyes and a huge nose. The eyes are black with red pupils. It also has fangs with blood dripping off of them. They also claimed that their friend was seeing the same scary balloon in her version of the game before the thread was shut down by a moderator. However, that is not the end of Pallery Matry's story. At 12:53 p.m. on the same day, they created a new thread to the same Ghost Dogs forum, this time called Kettle. Where is the kettle for Mrs. Herman's tea? Forum posters were again confused, but Pallery Matry was unable to offer up much more clarification before this thread was also closed. All of Pallery Matry's other posts seemed to be legitimate pleas for help with real puzzles in the games. Perhaps they got confused while playing a different game which was packaged with Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, or maybe it was a legitimate troll. I'm more inclined to believe the latter, especially considering the reference to their friend. I can just imagine 2 12-year-olds at a sleepover huddled together in front of the computer, giggling about confusing everyone on the Nancy Drew message boards. Nancy Drew reference in The Vampire Diaries. The Vampire Diaries was the last game Her Interactive made before the Nancy Drew series. In the game, you can find a newspaper which includes a column titled Her Interactive takes computing to her. Her Interactive continues their dedication to developing quality games for females with the release of their newest game. I do love some quality games for females. This newest title will serve as the perfect follow-up to their blockbuster title, The Vampire Diaries TM. Our team has worked very hard for this, and we are sure the new title will be big as The Vampire Diaries, said Sherry Grainer-Ray, producer for Her Interactive. This is, of course, a reference to the first Nancy Drew game, Secrets Can Kill. Sunny equals Snake. There's some graffiti in the final scene which reads, Snake was here. Apparently, Snake was Sunny June's original name before it was changed for Secret of the Scarlet Hand. So think about Sunny June next time you play the final scene. He was there! Microsites. Her Interactive's various microsites are small-scale websites created to help promote the games. Resorting to Danger, Treasure on the Tracks, Ransom of the 7 Ships, Trail of the Twister, Shadow at the Water's Edge, and Warnings at Waverly Academy are all games which were promoted with their own microsites. Some of these sites are still up, and a few of them you can access with the Wayback Machine. One of the most interesting ones is the Waverly Academy website, which amazingly has the exact same design as it does in the game. The Waverly website has so many cool things to explore. There's an option to fill out an application form, which would apparently give you a personalized Waverly Academy ID card. One of the options for filling out this application form is to pick your extracurricular activities. Yes, please, this is so freaking fun. Let me know what your 3 Waverly extracurriculars would be in the comments. I'm picking Equestrian Club, Ballet, and Foreign Language. There's also an interactive map and a list of upcoming Waverly events, including a guest lecture from the one and only Professor Hotchkiss. If you're like me and you've always wanted to attend Waverly Academy, I highly recommend checking the site out. I'll link it in the description. Then there's Yumi Shimizu's Happy Bento blog, which has 46 posts in total, including a tutorial on how to make bento. They must have had so much fun making this. This era of Her Interactive was truly doing the most. 46 posts on a blog the majority of fans probably won't even read, including a tutorial on bento with pictures? I fear we didn't deserve them. The last microsite I'm going to talk about is Storm Chaser Pete's blog. Storm Chaser Pete was apparently the last guy who worked for Team Canute from Trail of the Twister before Nancy. One of his last posts is titled, Guess who is in the hospital? The answer may surprise you. The answer is me. There are 60 posts on Pete's blog, and they're a super fun read with lots of additional insights about the characters from Trail of the Twister, without having to do all the chores and tedious puzzles. To Catch a Cat. To Catch a Cat is another piece of promotional material for Warnings at Waverley Academy. This one is a video web series of interviews with the valedictorian candidates Nancy meets while at Waverley. These roughly minute-long interviews tease the plot of the game and introduce the different suspects. Illuminancy. Spoilers for Tomb of the Lost Queen. This conspiracy theory stems from the fact that some people believe the Nancy Drew games contain Illuminati propaganda. One of the sources for this theory is this YouTube video, which has the description, "Mind control and Illuminati occult symbolism seems to be a central theme in Nancy Drew PC games, not only to condition the masses, but also to trigger monarch-programmed slaves." All I can really say about this is, she trigger on my monarch until I program her slave. Their examples for these symbols are pretty weak and vague, including such potent symbols as black and white floor tiles, the word butterfly, and the number 13. I love the suggestion that they just shouldn't have made a 13th game. Remember, friends, if you are creating any sort of series, stop at the 12th entry or you will be accused of promoting Illuminati propaganda. Oh yeah, and if you have a black and white tiled floor in your house, you're in league with the Illuminati. There's also an Amazon review for Tomb of the Lost Queen, which slams the game for promoting Illuminati propaganda. One of the characters refers to her royal Illuminati bloodline while pretending to believe in space aliens. Who knows what that background story was about? Well, at least I can agree with this person about one thing. This review also includes a direct message to the Illuminati, which is pretty bold. No one is impressed with you and your alleged bloodlines, i.e., awarding each other the most prominent positions in society through birthright, yada yada yada. Lady, I don't think the Illuminati, if they exist, are out here reading Amazon reviews for the Nancy Drew PC games. Rumor of Ghost Girl in Message in a Haunted Mansion. This is another creepypasta stemming from the Her Interactive message boards. However, this one had a lot more popularity than the supposed balloon in Ghost Dogs, with quite a few different people swearing they'd seen this ghost girl, and even posting specific instructions on how to trigger her appearance in Message in a Haunted Mansion. Apparently, if you followed a series of very exact steps in the game, you would see the ghost of the girl from the child painting found in the secret passage connected to the study. It's actually wild to see threads about this and how many people swear up and down that they saw this ghost girl and even a doggy with evil fangs. Some comments suggest this might be a glitch stemming from placeholder images in the game's files, or even that players might have dreamt the encounter. But no one has ever been able to find any evidence of the ghost girl encounter in the game's files, so this is widely accepted as a hoax. Marie Antoinette's ghost in Treasure in the Royal Tower. This is in the same vein as the other message board creepypastas / urban legends I've talked about, just not as well documented as the other two. Multiple users on the Nancy Drew subreddit recall seeing someone on the message boards talking about seeing Marie Antoinette's ghost in Treasure in the Royal Tower, which is, again, definitely another hoax. I looked for these original posts about Marie Antoinette's ghost, but I couldn't find any, so either they were deleted or, I don't know, maybe Marie Antoinette's ghost typed the messages, and they were just ghost forum posts. Stay tuned for danger models used to sell toys. I really saved the best for last with this one. Or worst, depending on your point of view. Basically, the models for Lillian Weiss and Rick Arlen from Stay Tuned for Danger were also used for a toy brand called Funday Me. Actually, Funday Me was exactly what I said when I first saw this image. And I'm not going to show the whole image because I don't want to be responsible for tarnishing anyone's fond memories of Stay Tuned for Danger. The ultimate remote sex solution. TM. Like, this can't be real, right? Anyway, I can actually explain how this happened. The use of the models. That is not anything else about the creation of this device. Something we as a fandom don't often talk about is the fact that Midnight in Salem wasn't the first game Her Interactive partially outsourced. A portion of the development of the older games was also outsourced, mainly the character models and animations. In the credits for Stay Tuned for Danger, you can see that the character modeling was done by Zygote Media Group, Inc. This company actually still exists and now specializes in medically accurate 3D anatomy. Using the Wayback Machine, I was able to go back to an old version of the site, and although some of the images failed to load, I found that they were selling models which look very similar to the characters from Stay Tuned for Danger, yes, including nude models. So there you go, simple explanation. And that is the Nancy Drew Iceberg. Explained. I watched quite a few Iceberg videos in preparation for this video, but I want to shout out Raphael's Life is Strange Iceberg and Plumbella's Sims Iceberg specifically, as they were both big inspirations for me. I also want to give shoutouts to the Nancy Drew Walkthroughs website and the Nancy Drew Wiki, which were both vital resources when compiling this iceberg. Not much more I can say other than like, comment, subscribe, and become a channel member if you'd like. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I am now going to go crash, much like the Titanic, you could say. The bolt from a gun, shield rhymes on the scene. A young detective who doesn't know the meaning of fear. When she's hot on the case, no time to waste when you're face to face with an evil that is creeping and you just can't see it. Persist, persevere, and your problem will disappear. You're saying in the jam and you don't know what to do. Get down with the Drew crew. There's a lot of music back here. Creeping and crawling, sneaking and read. Get over the horizon. Who could it be? M to the A to the N C Y. Doesn't matter with her fists, with her mind all the time. She's solving a mystery. Bad boys or girls, her history locked up where your choices are few. Resident of the room without a view. Do the crime and it's time we will do another victim with the crew. You can tell I just couldn't meet either my eyes or your eyes while doing that.
Like a bullet from a gun, she arrived on the scene. A young detective who doesn't know the meaning of fear. When she's hot on the case, no time to waste when you're face to face with an evil that is looking